My parent, who only gave a damn about me after my brother got into med school, made me serve drinks at his graduation party like a waitress. My aunt said, "Why isn't she sitting with us?" They just laughed. I packed my bags that night. Years later, when they found out I was. I've always been in my brother Luke's shadow. He's older by 2 years, but that didn't matter much. From the time I can remember, my parents were obsessed with him. He was the one who got the attention, the one they bragged about. He was their golden child, the one who was always perfect in every way. I guess I was just the second child, the one who didn't need much attention. Or that's how it felt. Growing up in a small town, it was clear early on that Luke was going places. He excelled in everything, school, sports, you name it. Meanwhile, I kind of blended into the background. I wasn't bad at anything, but I wasn't extraordinary either. In my parents' eyes, that meant I didn't need much. They were too busy with Luke's ambitions to notice I was trying to carve out a path of my own. When Luke got accepted into med school, the entire town practically shut down to celebrate. I don't think I've ever seen my parents so proud. People threw parties, wrote congratulatory posts on Facebook, and went on and on about how Luke was going to change the world. They had always pushed him, always expected greatness from him, and now it was paying off. I was working at the local diner at the time, which was a job I took after high school to save up for college. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I didn't mind it, I didn't mind being independent. But I guess in their eyes, I wasn't anything worth celebrating. Not like Luke. When the day of Luke's graduation came, my parents threw a big party. Of course, it wasn't for me. It was all about Luke, his accomplishment, his future. And they made sure to remind everyone who came that they'd made it happen. I was there, helping set up and make everything perfect, just like I always did. I didn't expect much, but I also didn't expect to feel so invisible. They told me to serve drinks to the guests, as though that was my place. It felt like nothing had changed. They never saw me, never really took the time to notice what I was doing or who I was becoming. I was just the person in the background, doing the work no one else wanted to do. At one point, Aunt Brenda, who was always the more outspoken one, asked, "Why isn't she sitting with us? What's she doing out there?" My mom laughed and said, "Oh, Althea's just helping out. She's such a good girl, always taking care of things." They laughed together, as if it was just a joke, but it hurt. It wasn't just Aunt Brenda, it was everyone there, all of them looking at me like I wasn't even part of the family. I was just a servant at my own brother's celebration, serving drinks while they all sat comfortably, celebrating Luke's success. I smiled through it, but deep down, I felt like I was suffocating. That night, after the party was over, I went into the kitchen to grab my bag. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't even want to talk to them. I just left. I remember driving through the dark streets of the town, not really sure where I was headed but knowing I couldn't stay. It wasn't even about the party anymore. It was everything that had led up to that moment, the years of feeling overlooked, the constant feeling of being second best. I packed a suitcase that night. It wasn't much, just some clothes, a few books, and a couple of pictures I had taken with friends over the years. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't think they'd care. I didn't think they'd even notice I was gone. The next morning, I got on a bus out of town. I didn't look back. Living in Seattle was different. I found a tiny apartment and a job at a small bookstore. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I enrolled in community college, determined to make something of myself. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. No one knew me as Luke's sister. No one expected me to be anything other than who I was. I didn't hear from my family for months. I didn't reach out, and they didn't either. I figured it was for the best. They hadn't really reached out when I was still living in their house, so why would they now? I built a new life, one where I wasn't anyone's afterthought. I made new friends, met people who respected me, and began to realize that I wasn't just living in the shadow of someone else. I was carving my own path, and that felt Good. But then one day, years later, I received a call from my mother. Althea? Her voice was shaky, uncertain. We need to talk. It's about Luke. I felt a lump form in my throat, but I didn't say anything right away. It's serious, Althea, she continued. He's sick. The doctors don't know what's wrong, and he's getting worse. There was a long pause. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't spoken to Luke in years. I hadn't even thought about him that much. But hearing her voice crack, hearing her panic, made something in me stir. I don't know if I can help, Mom, I finally said. I'm so far away. I haven't even been home in years. I know, she said softly. But we don't know what else to do. We need you. I didn't respond immediately. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. I didn't know if I was even ready to face my family again, after everything that had happened. But I agreed to come back. I don't know why I did. Maybe because she was my mother, and maybe because, deep down, I wondered if there was something I could give Luke, something I owed him, even after everything. I went back to the town I had tried so hard to leave behind. Walking through the old streets, I felt a mix of nostalgia and resentment. The small town feel was still there, but it didn't feel like home anymore. I drove to my parents' house. It looked the same, nothing had changed. The old furniture, the creaky floors. But there was a tension in the air that I hadn't felt before. My parents looked older. Luke, though, looked nothing like the confident, charismatic person he used to be. His face was pale, drawn, his eyes distant. He was no longer the golden child, the one everyone expected great things from. I sat across from him, unsure of what to say. My mom sat beside him, holding his hand, looking like a woman who had lost her strength. Althea, my father began, we were wrong. We didn't see you. We didn't see what you were doing for us, for the family. We took you for granted. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. I had spent so many years being invisible, and now they wanted me to just forgive them? It was hard. Too hard. Luke spoke quietly. I'm sorry, Althea. I don't think I ever understood what you went through. What you had to sacrifice to make us proud. I could feel the weight of his words, but I didn't know if I could let go of everything. The years of silence, the years of being second best, had left scars. But I wasn't the same person I used to be. I had built a life on my own terms, and while part of me wanted to be angry, part of me also felt like I had already moved past this. I wasn't anyone's backup plan anymore. I sat there in the living room, the air thick with unspoken words, with guilt and regret hanging like a cloud over us all. My parents were watching me closely, waiting for a reaction, maybe even hoping for forgiveness. But I wasn't sure if I could offer that so easily. They had spent years not seeing me, not recognizing me, only waking up to the fact that I was there now because Luke was sick. They had never reached out. No letters. No apologies. Not even an acknowledgement of how much they had taken me for granted. Luke's apology, though sincere, was heavy with the weight of everything he had missed. He looked at me, his face pale, his eyes not the same as the confident, charming man he once was. He had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Now, he was just a man facing the consequences of his choices, his arrogance, his oblivion to the people around him. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. He was lying there, practically bedridden, looking vulnerable. But then I remembered all the years I had been the one who held everything together, who was invisible in the background while he was on a pedestal. He wasn't the only one who had been living in a shadow. I don't even know where to start, I said quietly. You both spent years telling everyone how great Luke is, and I've been here. Quiet. Invisible. And now, suddenly, you need me? My parents didn't say anything at first. I could feel the weight of their silence. They weren't used to me talking like this, to me pointing out the truth. They had been too busy fawning over Luke to realize that I had been doing just as much, maybe more, without any recognition. I didn't want to leave, I continued, my voice growing firmer. But I had to. I couldn't stay in a house where I was invisible. Where I was just a background character in your story. I had my own dreams, my own goals, but none of you ever saw them. You only ever saw Luke. My mom's eyes welled up with tears, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of pity. But then I remembered the years of frustration that had built up inside me, the countless times I had tried to get their attention, to show them I was worth something. It wasn't their apologies that I needed, it was the acknowledgement that I existed, that I mattered, just as much as Luke did. I'm sorry, Althea, my mom whispered, her voice breaking. We should have seen you. We should have been there for you. But we were so focused on Luke. We didn't realize. I didn't know how to respond. How could I just forgive them? How could I let them off the hook for years of neglect? Part of me wanted to scream at them, to tell them that I didn't need their pity. That I had built my own life without them, and I wasn't sure I could ever go back to being the daughter who had been constantly overlooked. But then, I saw Luke's eyes. He was staring at me, and I could see the genuine regret in his gaze. I had always wanted him to understand, to see what I had gone through, to acknowledge that I wasn't just the person who stayed in the background. And now, for the first time, I saw that he did. I don't expect you to forgive us, my dad said, his voice thick with regret. But we're here, Althea. We're here now. And we need you. I felt a lump form in my throat. I didn't know what to say. What was I supposed to say? I had spent so many years running away from this family, trying to forget the pain, trying to build something for myself. And now, here they were, asking for me to come back. To be the person they had always wanted me to be. But I couldn't go back to being that girl. I couldn't go back to being invisible. I had learned to stand on my own, to carve my own path. And no matter how much they begged, I wasn't sure if I could erase the years of hurt. I'm not sure I can just pick up where we left off, I said quietly, my voice shaking. I've changed. And I don't think I can be the person you want me to be anymore. There was a long pause, the tension in the room palpable. My parents exchanged a look, one I couldn't quite place. It was almost as if they were trying to figure out how to fix things, how to undo everything they had done. But the truth was, there were no easy fixes. There was no magic apology that could take away the years of pain, of feeling like I was never enough. I know you've changed, my dad said softly. And I understand. But that doesn't mean we can't try. We can't undo the past, but we can start over. If you'll let us. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. Could I really go back to this family, knowing everything that had happened? Could I truly forgive them, even though I had built a life without them? I wasn't sure. But there was one thing I knew for certain, I wasn't going to go back to being the invisible daughter. I had worked too hard to get where I was, and I wasn't going to let them erase that. I'll think about it, I said finally, standing up. But don't expect me to just fall in line. I'm not the same person I was when I left. And I won't be anyone's afterthought anymore. I turned to leave, but before I did, Luke's voice stopped me. Althea, please. Don't go. I'm sorry. I know I can't fix everything, but I want to try. For you. For us. I didn't turn around. I just nodded. I'll be around, I said quietly, and then I left. As I walked out of that house, something in me shifted. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing, I wasn't the same person who had left all those years ago. I had my own life now, and whether my family could accept that or not, it didn't matter. I was done being their second choice, their backup plan. I was Althea. And that was enough. I walked out of the house, my heart heavy with all the years I had buried in that small town. I could feel the weight of my parents' eyes on me, but I didn't look back. I wasn't the same person I had been when I left all those years ago. I had found my own way, built my own life, and now, standing there, I realized that they had lost something in the process. Not just their daughter, but the person who had always been quietly holding things together while they focused on Luke. I had always been the one in the background, never seen, never truly valued. But now, I was someone else. I had learned to stand on my own, to see myself as worth more than their neglect. And as I stepped out into the cool evening air, something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to be their invisible daughter anymore. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at a small rented apartment a few miles away, trying to figure out where my relationship with my family stood. I couldn't go back to being the daughter they expected me to be, not after everything. But I also knew that I couldn't completely shut them out, not after Luke's apology, not after they had begged for another chance. They wanted to start over, but I wasn't sure that was something I was willing to do on their terms. I spent a few days thinking things over. I'd always been good at pushing down my emotions, at pretending everything was fine while I silently held on to resentment. But this time I decided I wasn't going to bury it. I had been patient for too long. And when I did decide to reach out, it wasn't going to be for their sake, it was for mine. A week later, I called my mom. "Althea?" She answered quickly, almost too quickly, as if she had been waiting for the call. "Are you okay? We've been so worried about you." "I'm fine," I replied, my voice steady. "But we need to talk. I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. And I'm not sure I'm ready to forgive and forget. I can't just pretend like nothing happened." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I understand," she said softly. "But we want to make things right, Althea. We want to fix this." "I know you do. But it's not going to happen overnight." I took a breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "You've always pushed Luke, made him the center of everything. And that's fine, he's your son, of course. But I was there too, and you never saw me. You never really saw me for who I was, what I could do. I wasn't just your backup plan. I was your daughter, and that should have meant something." "I know. We should have seen you. We should have treated you better. But it's not too late, Althea. Please come back. Let us show you that we've changed." I thought about it for a second. I wasn't sure if they had really changed, but I also knew that if I didn't stand my ground, I would continue to be nothing more than a silent, unseen figure in their world. "I'm not coming back as the daughter who was ignored," I said, my voice firm. "If you want me to be part of this family, I need to know that you truly see me. Not just because of Luke's illness, but because I'm Althea. Not his sister. Me. Just me. I promise, Althea, we'll try. We'll do better." I didn't go back to their house immediately. I needed time to see if they meant it, if they were truly ready to recognize me as an individual, not just as an extension of Luke. Over the next few months, I kept my distance. I focused on my work, on my studies, and on rebuilding my life without the toxic weight of their expectations. They tried reaching out, calling me, texting me, but I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to let them off the hook so easily. Luke, on the other hand, had reached out as well. His illness was serious, and though it had humbled him in ways that I hadn't expected, I couldn't help but feel that his apology came too late. I visited him a couple of times, checking in on him, but it was always a strained visit. He was sick, yes, but he had also been blind to everything I had gone through. I could see how broken my parents were, how they had no idea how to fix the mess they had made. They were trying, but it didn't feel like enough. They weren't making the effort for me, they were making it because they needed me. But I didn't need them in the same way anymore. I had learned to survive on my own. It wasn't until a year later, after they had consistently tried to mend things, that I finally saw a change. Not a dramatic, life-altering change, but a shift in how they treated me. They were no longer treating me like a second-class citizen, but as someone who was just as important as Luke. They had started inviting me to family gatherings, asking for my opinions, valuing my input. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And that's when I decided to take control. One evening, I invited them all to dinner at a restaurant in Seattle. I wanted to show them that I had moved on, that I was living my own life, that I didn't need their validation anymore. When they walked into the restaurant and saw me sitting at the table with my new friends, the look on their faces was priceless. They had been expecting me to show up alone, to look like the same girl they had left behind. But that wasn't me anymore. Luke looked uncomfortable. He had always been the center of attention in our family, and now, here I was, with my own life, my own friends, and my own success. I saw his eyes flicker with something, regret, maybe? Or maybe he was just surprised that I had made a life without them. "Althea," my mom said, her voice hesitant, "this place is nice." "Yeah," I said with a smile, looking around at the cozy atmosphere of the restaurant. "I've been doing well for myself. I wanted to show you that I'm okay. That I didn't need you to make me happy." My parents exchanged a glance, but it was different this time. They weren't trying to apologize with words, they were listening. Really listening. "You've done well for yourself, Althea," my dad said slowly. "I think we've both missed that." Luke shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He was trying to find his words, but nothing came out at first. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "I was a jerk," he said, looking at me directly. "I was always the one who got all the praise, and I never stopped to think about how you felt. How you were dealing with everything." I nodded, not saying anything right away. I didn't need him to apologize again. What I needed was for him to get it. And for the first time in years, I saw that he did. As the night went on, I could tell my family was trying to make amends, but the truth was, they couldn't change the past. They could only move forward, and so could I. By the end of the evening, I knew I had won. I had taken control of my life, of my narrative, and I wasn't going to let them dictate my worth anymore. I wasn't going to be the afterthought in anyone's story. I walked away from that dinner knowing that I had nothing left to prove to them. I had finally given myself the freedom to live without the burden of their expectations. And maybe that was the sweetest revenge of all. It's been a few years since that dinner. Life, as it always does, moves forward, but I've never looked back with regret. I'm not sure if my parents and Luke ever fully understood the depth of what I went through, but I've come to realize that it doesn't matter. What matters is that I saw myself for who I truly am and stopped waiting for validation from people who couldn't see me for years. I'm living in Seattle now, in a small apartment above a bookstore I manage. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. I built a life I'm proud of, with a circle of friends who see me, not as Luke's sister or anyone's second choice, but as Althea. For the first time, I feel like I'm the main character in my own story. I still talk to my parents and Luke, but things are different. It's not perfect, and it's not the picture-perfect family they always wanted, but we've found a new way to relate to each other. I visit home now, but it's always on my terms. There are no more dinners where I'm expected to be invisible. No more parties where I'm a side note. They know me now, or at least they're trying to. Luke and I have a tentative relationship, built on honest conversations and, admittedly, a lot of awkward silences at first. He's doing better with his health, and I'm glad for him. I don't hold grudges anymore, not because I've forgiven, but because I've learned to let go of the need for anyone to validate my existence. I'm enough, on my own. As for my parents, they've worked hard to show me that they value me, but they still make mistakes. I'm not expecting perfection anymore, and neither are they. We've learned to navigate this new version of our family, one that acknowledges that we all have our flaws, but that we can still try to move forward, even if it's imperfect. It wasn't an easy journey, and it took a lot of strength to walk away, to fight for the life I wanted, and to refuse to stay in a place where I wasn't seen or valued. But in the end, it was worth it. I don't need revenge anymore. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. The sweetest revenge was never about hurting anyone back, it was about showing up for myself when no one else would. And that, I think, is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done.